Good evening, everyone. Today we have a regular meeting of the City Council of the City of Cape May. We are here in the Cape May City Hall Auditorium. Pardon me. Today is Tuesday, February 20th, 2024. The time is now 5:03. Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
Under the Open Public Meetings Law, notice of this meeting was sent to the Cape May County Herald and the Press of Atlantic City, and a copy of the agenda was delivered to each member of City Council, posted on the Cape May City website and the Cape May City Hall Bulletin Board. Notice is hereby provided that Cape May City Council meetings are audio recorded and video streamed live. Live video streams are posted to the Cape May City website. The City of Cape May is not responsible if audio recording or live video streaming of a meeting is unavailable. Roll call. Deputy Mayor Baldwin.
Here.
Councilmember McDade.
Here.
Present via telephone. Councilmember Meyer.
Here.
Mayor Mellick.
Here.
Councilmember Yeager.
Here.
City Solicitor Gillenschwartz.
Here.
City Manager Dietrich.
Here.
And in the audience, we have Deputy City Manager Justin Riggs. Any additions or deletions, Council?
Any additions or deletions, Council? No? City Manager, updates?
Thank you. Well, if anybody's tried to go down Texas Avenue this morning, yes, we are in the process of repairing a sinkhole that was found several weeks ago. There is a hole both in the county drainage pipe and the city's sewer pipe, so we're making those repair. Hopefully they will be done this week. And we had to kind of complete this work in advance of doing the sewer repair work on Lafayette because the detour for the Lafayette traffic was going to be through this area. So we're getting this all buttoned up this week, and then we'll be rolling right into the change of traffic detour on for Lafayette Street sewer repair. And hopefully we'll get through this with as least pain as possible. And then I
Mr.
did.
City Manager, can I ask you one on that? So what's the expected date now for the traffic to have to go toward Washington?
That'll be we're anticipating a 6 to 8 week
Okay.
time period.
I mean, when would that start?
That would start, it'll probably start that, if we
2
get done this week,
Okay.
we anticipate next Monday, depending on how those repairs go, they're going to roll right into that and set that detour and change of traffic patterns up.
That detour will be obvious to everyone, but it's a significant one. As soon as you go over the little bridge, you're actually going to make a left before the Tuna Club there, toward the Riggins.
And go around, and then there'll be two-way traffic on that section of Washington Street.
Sorry to interrupt.
That's fine. And then the other thing, I did make a present, or at least a report to, at the Bike and Pedestrian Committee last week, that the county is moving ever closer to installing a roundabout. Yes, we're getting a roundabout down this way at the intersection of West Perry, Myrtle, and Park out there. So that will probably be coming next year. Well, I would anticipate it. I think they got the last issues worked out with one of the private property owners and some parking issues, but that project has been long in the planning, and it looks like it's going to be moving forward maybe next year.
Okay, anything, City Solicitor?
Just want to briefly report to council, we received a favorable BPU determination last week on our petition for eligibility for the ADI program, which essentially is going to provide some funding for the solar project that the city undertook. So that was a good order. It was along with other similarly situated applicants. So I just wanted to report that good news to council.
That's great. Okay. On to ordinances for introduction.
Yes, Council, we have 528-2024, an ordinance establishing mandatory direct deposit of net pay for employees of the City of Cape May.
Do I have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Mr. City Manager, could you give us a brief
Sure.
explanation?
This is an ordinance, looked at, and just as really a cost savings and a manpower savings, to look at having direct deposit required for all city employees. It is a lot of additional work and costs to have the checks, curried down here, stuff them in envelopes, and then obviously distribute them during the pay period, as well as potentially then mailing all of the pay stubs to an employee that's currently not around. There's also an additional, because of our fraud protection with Sturdy, any check that's over $1,000 has to have a positive pay correction, where Sturdy calls City Hall to verify the check and check amount to make sure that it's not a fraudulent check. So it could cause an interruption for an employee if he's trying to cash a check during off hours or on the weekend, where that can't be verified with the city. It could cause a delay in them cashing their check. So just for overall efficiency and a cost savings, we're looking to move this forward.
Great. Any questions? Go ahead.
Yes, I do, Mayor. Thank you. Under the local finance notice, where this came from, where it says that we're allowed to do this, on the backside it says that, I think it said the backside, I'm sorry. I think it says somewhere in here that seasonal employees could be exempt. Is that something that we were looking to possibly allow?
We'll take that on a case-by-case basis. I mean, obviously, we want to encourage, to be honest, that's where we get a lot of our potential problems, whether it's distribution of those checks, or those seasonal employees tend to be more frequency of losing their checks, and then us having to reissue those
Goes to the line.
checks and go through that process. So, we're going to do everything we can to, I mean, there is an allowance in the ordinance for a seasonal person, especially a part-time seasonal person, but we're going to encourage, especially in today's days and age of, electronic submitting of checks, that to have it, get as many people as we can signed up for direct deposit.
Councilman Meyer, it's framed as sort of an opt-out, so seasonal employees may be exempt. They can just submit a request to the city manager's office saying, hey, could I get a check instead of direct deposit?
Thank you.
And, we have a fairly large number of uncashed checks, which, trust me, are a very big problem. Yes.
Okay.
I know that, too.
Any other questions or comments? Roll call?
Councilmember Yeager?
Yes.
Councilmember Meyer?
Yes.
Councilmember McDade?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Baldwin?
Yes.
Mayor Mullick?
Yes.
Thank you.
We have an ordinance for second reading and consideration for adoption. This is 525-2024, an ordinance amending sections 482 and 525 of the Cape May City Code to update policies and procedures for the protection of trees in the city of Cape May. And there is a public hearing tonight, Mayor.
Is anyone here wishing to speak on ordinance 525? This is the ordinance on trees. Please come to anyone else that would like to come up to the microphone, state your name and address for the record.
Yeah, this brings our ordinance closer to the West Cape May ordinance, closes a couple of loopholes in our present ordinance that we have, and provides for a tree bank. Trees that were in the footprint of the house, driveway, and garage before were just lost trees. Now the homeowner or the developer would be required to plant a tree for each tree lost in the footprint or within 6 foot of the development or house. And if it can't put them on the property, it'd be required to give us money to buy replacement trees for use elsewhere in Cape May. So this provides us with a little bit of extra money. And I want to thank our council representative, Shane Meyer, and our city attorney for all the work that they put in on changing, developing this ordinance.
Great, thank you.
Pardon?
Thank you, Jay, and thank you for all the hard work that you and your
All my committee, the whole Shade Tree Commission put in a lot of work on this back and forth, and I thank the forbearance of the city attorney as the suggestions flowed back and forth at 3 or 4 meetings that we had. So, thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other comments from the public? Please.
Martin Van Walsum at 329 Congress Street. A few months ago, we lost a very majestic maple tree to a project next door. And in reading the ordinance, there's nothing in the ordinance that would prevent that from happening. From the Shade Tree Commission meetings, which I do listen to in my lengthy drive from Massachusetts, I've learned a lot. I've learned that the tree roots can be compacted when machinery is driven over it. That's happened to us this spring. The tree had a bad summer, but it was also a bad summer for trees. We were concerned about the tree. We spoke with the homeowner. The homeowner spoke with the mason that had been hired, and the mason assured them that they would take precautions to not injure this maple tree until the backhoe came in and completely severed the roots of the tree within a couple of minutes, and the tree was irreparably damaged. We had to take it down. There are two sections in the proposed ordinance that could be, there could be a delineation for trees immediately adjacent to the project property where the tree protection zone, or TPZ, could be extended so that a fence around, for example, this maple tree, which was at least 40 feet high, a semicircle of that same fence that's contemplated by the ordinance could be put on their property to protect that tree, even though the trunk is on our property. I did mention this to the Shade Tree Commission last month. The response was very favorable. There's one very minor mention of adjacent properties, but I don't think it's enough to get notice of people that are reading the ordinance to know that they need to take precautions to protect the root structure of a tree that's immediately adjacent to a project.
Can I ask the solicitor, first off, do you agree with that, if you don't mind me asking?
Well, this is establishing something that didn't exist before. The tree protection zone is included in the landscaping and zoning and planning element of it. It's actually incorporated in both sections now. So when you're doing a project, there should be some tree protection incorporated in your landscaping plan. I have some reservations about the going on to the non-applicant property to do those types of things. I'm not saying it's can't be done. It's certainly not contemplated in here. What this contemplates is if property A is doing a project, property A is going to comply with this ordinance, and that includes the TPZ. It's something, if you want to expand that concept from what's in here, I think what's in here is pretty robust, though. There's a lot of language in here.
What about penalties when it's clear that you've killed your neighbor's tree?
That if you take down a tree without a permit, you can be subject to enforcement under this ordinance.
Well, it doesn't sound like they did it without a permit in this.
Well, so the landscape plan would not include my tree.
Right.
Okay, because the tree is not on the property itself. We've done our research by state tree law. They are allowed to cut the roots just like you're allowed to cut a branch. It's unfortunate that that's the way the state law is written, but that's the case. We're allowed to recover damages for the tree that we lost from our neighbor, which we don't intend to do. We have a good relationship with them, and it wasn't their doing, it was the mason's doing. I understand not wanting to go on subject property. That's why I mentioned putting a semicircle on the subject property around the tree, which would not disturb my property, but would still put that post and rail fence that's contemplated by the TPZ in place, letting that mason know this tree has been designated as one by the Shade Tree Commission that needs to be protected. And therefore, if, for example, there is going to be construction of a retaining wall, as was the case here, we would at least be notified, there would be a conversation so that we could understand, and not just show up one day and find out we have a tree that's going to die.
Well, I would just, that's an unfortunate example, but I think that this is geared towards addressing that very issue. There's the default here is a 12-foot, I think, calculated by multiplying I know you know this, Martin, you read this, but multiplying the diameter of the tree by 12, generally that's the area and dimensions of the TPZ. However, when the zoning planning board or the Shade Tree Commission, which is usually going to be the case, is reviewing that, they can say, you know, looks like you have some other adjoining elements or existing elements that should be further protected. So there's some flexibility in the language to tailor it to the specific piece of property, which is, I think, is Martin's concern.
I completely agree with that, but zoning and planning are not going to visit the property and look for trees on my property whose root structure is on theirs. If we were to include something to the effect of including trees immediately adjacent to the project site whose root structures are significantly under the subject property, calling it out in the ordinance, I think that our tree would have had a higher likelihood of not being affected.
Well, I think that that's incorporated in here, actually, because I'll read you the first sentence. Tree protected zone shall be delineated around all trees to be protected during a project to limit root pruning and restrict traffic and material storage. So I don't read that as excluding.
I don't either, but the person that's reading it, especially.
I'm telling you that I wrote it, so.
I understand.
That's not limiting to it. So, and the intent here was that the goal of this ordinance, and this is for the world to hear, okay? The goal of this ordinance is to protect trees in the city of Cape May. Some towns don't bother to do this. So when there's language in here about let's protect root damage, unrestricted root pruning, restrict traffic, material storage, I don't read that to mean only that one. So the city has the authority to say, you know what, there's 3 old-growth maples in the vicinity of this, and all those need to be protected. I think that flexibility, the flexibility you're looking for is there.
It is there. I'm suggesting that by calling it out as being, including trees immediately adjacent to the property, it draws attention to it. That was my recommendation. Thanks for your consideration.
Thank you. Just so I finish this thought, because I'll forget, I apologize. Is there a minor sentence that could be added to that to reflect that this is all trees that may be affected by the project?
My concern with tweaking this right now is that you're going to set yourselves back on adoption.
The purpose, we've discussed many other additions to this ordinance over the last few months. It took many months to get to where it is at this point, and it's still going to take another month before it becomes enacted into law. One of the things that we discussed as a commission was that this is going to be the new starting point to add to. So we are concerned, we are aware of these other concerns, and we are aware that there's probably going to be future tweaking to this, but we wanted to get this started before the spring.
I think it's a good idea to, personally, to pass this evening regardless, but knowing that we could make an amendment to this, and while we're discussing it tonight, obviously talk about what that might sound like. I interrupted you, Deputy Mayor.
No, that's okay, I'm sorry. I like the idea, and we'll go back to the Shade Tree Commission for some of the other, kind of tightening it up a little bit more. I agree with approving it tonight. But my bigger question is if you have adjacent, I mean, I know Mr. Van Walsum said, what is the law state as far as, cutting those roots? I mean, would this supersede that, or?
Are we allowed to supersede that?
Yeah, are we allowed to? I mean, where are we legally with that?
Sure, I mean, there's, like I said, some towns do not have these additional, I'm sorry, I keep leaning back when I was talking. Some towns do not have these additional layers of protection. We have the authority to say, hey, we don't want to do unnecessary removal of trees, and we want to have protections in place. So I don't see those things as, there are state regulations. There's also state regulations regarding the types of activities that require licensure to do. But what we're doing is filling in an area where it's left to the discretion of the town, I think. So I think a lot of this, too, a lot of the concerns that come up in this context are not in the absence of a regulation to enforce, but it may be, an enforcement issue on that end, because we really are, this is really a restatement of a lot of the things we already have on the books and adding some helpful provisions such as the TPZ and things like that to give more protection throughout the process, adding things like at the beginning of the permit phase. And this goes, and I hope nobody misunderstood this. I was not poo-pooing Mr. Van Walsum's comment. I was trying to find a way to look for it in the ordinance, because that's really the goal here, is to prevent unnecessary damage. But one of the things that the city manager mentioned is we already have here an indication at the application phase. Is this project, this new deck, this new garage, this new house, is it calling for removal of trees on site? And if so, those need to be accounted for in here. One of the things we could do in the application process is ask for, that type of information that will allow the city to process it,
I mean, we could also ask for, within 10 feet of the property line, location of any trees that are greater than 6 inches in diameter, to show that it's part of their, just like we ask for on all site plans, topography within a certain, different, just to look at grading and those kinds of things. So, we could look at it, so that way if it's a zoning or planning board or zoning board application, when Shade Tree gets that application, they'll be able to look at the plan really quickly and say, oh, there's a tree within so many feet of that, and then make that recommendation to the planning board that a TPZ needs to be accounted for on that. Now, it still may be something where, for what we just described, if they're having to put a retaining wall on the property line for grading and draining purposes, that may be a necessity item that may have had to have gone there for grading or flood protection. So this tree might have had the roots damaged irregardless, but if it's somewhere where maybe there's nothing else but it's just in the lawn area, and you want to protect that so that construction vehicles aren't driving over the root zone, that's, I think, as much of a protection that we want to look at doing, as well as looking at, is there a direct impact, as well as the indirect impacts.
There are multiple parts of this ordinance. The ordinance is our side of, creating the letter of the law. There is enforcement side, there is application side, there might be other things I'm not mentioning, but the application process is really, dovetails with this ordinance. We need to add more requirements to the application process and make it a lot like West Cape May. But one of the things we're thinking about looking for is asking for some kind of diagram of the property and where all the located trees are. So that way we have something in our records when someone's walking their dog down the street after being gone all winter long and saying, hey, I think there was a tree there. We have that kind of record to look back and say, where did that tree go? When did it go? And why did it go? So there's more that we need to add to the application process as well, and that's what we're going to be working on next as a commission.
That's great. Any other public comment?
Jules Rouse, 1010 New York Avenue. More of a question. The adjoining property, 1000 New York Avenue, which has been under rehab for the last almost 3 years, they put a line of Leland cypress, and I'm assuming a Leland cypress is determined to be a tree and not a shrubbery. When they planted it, they planted, I believe, 15 of them, 1.5 foot on center, 1.5 feet inside in their property. And I made a comment to the planning board that really is a fence. It is not just a landscaping of trees. The planning board had no interest in even thinking about recognizing landscaping as a fence. We're faced now with a certain situation where the trees are now between 8 and 10 feet high. They are a solid mass. The tree trunk, they've grown to about 4 inches in diameter. The growth of a Leland cypress is significant, particularly when there's enough moisture. Those trees are being trimmed at least twice a year now. They don't infringe on our property line. I've talked with the owner. He said, I'll maintain the trimming of the foliage so that it doesn't extend beyond the property line. But now we're faced with a line of trees that are solid, and having dug on my property, the roots from those trees are probably 4 to 5, 6 feet into our property, and if they aren't against the foundation, they're very close to it. I don't know how you address this kind of issue, but I know I have the right to do a root trimming or root pruning, as well as the area above the property, above the land. How does this come into play, or doesn't it come into play with the proposed ordinance.
Well, this deals with removal of trees. So I can't render legal advice from the desk up here for your tree issue, but property owners have private property rights in terms of trees that may be encroaching on their property. That's a more complex discussion than what we're talking about right here. This is about removing trees as part of a development application, as part of a routine removal, removing trees from the right-of-way. As it relates to you or anybody else and their neighbor, I wouldn't automatically leap to the conclusion under this that you can just remove or substantially intentionally damage a tree. These are provisions that are designed to protect and preserve trees, although there may be some elements of pruning required. That's a conversation really I think this ordinance doesn't go into great detail, and I think assumes that neighbors are going to have a conversation about their property lines before resorting to this or some removal application.
Well, I think it's an issue, frankly, that should be looked at because there are more and more properties that are using trees as a form of fence to gain not just the 6-foot-high fence, which is permitted, but these things are going out of sight. The odd thing is the property on the next to me, the trunk is the trunks are over 24 inches. They're Leland cypress. They're 70 feet in high, or to 100 feet high. They encompass all the electric lines. We experience almost a fire every year. So it's something that if we continue to allow someone to put a line of particularly Leland cypress, it's an issue. I think it should be looked at. Thank you very much.
If there's any issues with trees going into lines, please let the city know so we can let Atlantic City Electric know to trim them.
Okay. Any other public comment? Okay, motion. Do I have a motion on ordinance 525?
You have it now.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Any questions or comments, council? I would just comment that hearing a couple of recommendations, Martin being one of them, I think it would make sense, and I think you would probably agree to protect the trees by passing this evening. Obviously, it's going to take some time to actually be the law, but I think looking at this further and any kind of updates to the ordinance would make sense to me. And Martin, specifically what you brought up, I think that's what we're trying to take care of within this ordinance. So I'd be happy to hear your thoughts as we proceed, and anyone else's. Any other comments, council? Roll call?
Councilmember Yeager?
Yes.
Councilmember Meyer?
Yes.
Councilmember McDade?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Baldwin?
Yes.
Mayor Mullick?
Yes, and I just again want to thank Jay, the whole tree commission, and Shane for working really hard on this, and our solicitor. Thank you very much.
All right, next we have the public portion on the resolutions only, Mayor.
Anyone here wishing to speak on the resolutions this evening, please come to the microphone, state your name and address for the record.
Good evening. Chris Becerra, 228 Windsor Avenue. I would like to address Resolution 90-02-2024, the resolution authorizing the advertisement for bids for the reconstruction of Beach Avenue, Broadway to the Cove. And actually, this is kind of a broader conversation, not specific to this area, but I think includes this area. And I was fortunate enough to actually catch a conversation with Councilman Yeager as we walked in with Mr. Roush. So I'm not the only one questioning this. But my question, I guess, Mr. Yeager, if you could explain the bump outs on Beach Drive, and if those bump outs that have been put in by the county, if the city is going to plan on doing that down towards the Cove. And I think it was a pedestrian issue that you were addressing as far as why the curb cut is now all of a sudden out into the street.
So the plan as far as from Broadway down to the Cove, I was looking at pretty small plans. I don't think there are any bump outs in that area. So it's not a city design aspect, I should say,
Okay.
for that part of town. The county is the one that decides on the bump outs. they were put on Pittsburgh Avenue. They'll be put on Lafayette, I would assume, in some locations. But to your point, the reason for a bump out is if you stand on one of the bump outs right now, when you look down the street, what you'll see is you're looking right down the line of a parked car. So all the cars parked on Beach Avenue, in this case, coming up to that bump out, are pretty much sticking out the same distance as the bump out. The purpose is it's really protection for a pedestrian. It's like a safe area where a pedestrian can walk out. They're still up at curb height. They can look both directions and see cars coming. They can see bicycles coming. And to be honest with you, as a driver of a car and a rider of a bicycle, I like the idea myself too, because I can see the people who are just about ready to step out into the street, and it's not as much of a surprise as it has been in the past. It shouldn't be as much of a surprise to the rider or the driver. So that's really their purpose. They're there for pedestrians.
The reason I asked you more specifically also, because I know you're the liaison to the Bike and Pedestrian Committee, and I know how passionate they are about these roads being done and making sure I know they focus more on the bike aspect sometimes than not, instead of pedestrian, and this is a pedestrian safety issue.
Yeah.
But I want to make sure, I want to make sure we don't have a repeat of an issue we had when Columbia Avenue was done, and that was in between administrations, and the ball got dropped somewhere where the striping on Columbia wasn't done as per a plan that the pedestrian committee thought was going to be done, and we lost bike lanes.
Right.
So furthermore, I guess my question also is, does the city, or are they in contact with the county before anything gets done on Beach Drive? Will that be taken into account?
Yeah, absolutely. We already have the striping plans for Beach Avenue. We know exactly what they are, and I don't think that there are any issues where we understand exactly what it's going to be, but you know Beach Avenue, it's pretty much most of the length of it, you don't have any space for a bike lane. The Sharrows.
Well, once you get from Howard Street, it's wider.
On Beach,
Yeah.
the proposed will be, for the county section, will have a bike lane in both directions.
Okay, and that was my understanding on that committee. It was wide enough for it.
On our section, we may not have sufficient room, because in our section, the parking is perpendicular.
Right.
So it extends out into.
Right.
So if we decided to really put bike lanes in our section, then we'd have to be contemplating losing parking. So that's going to be a discussion that we're going to have of
that's-
the
I don't think.
the balance of having more parking or having bike lanes.
Okay, and it brings up.
I'm sorry,
ahead.
you're in front of, say, Carney's,
From
et cetera.
from Broadway to the Cove.
Okay.
That's what I'm saying, because
Yeah.
the parking is perpendicular, in order to, if we want to accommodate bike lanes to continue them down to the Cove,
Yes. Which-
we would be losing parking, because we'd have to switch the parking either to have a greater angle, or less of an angle, I'm going to say, or to be fully parallel. But that would involve losing significant parking in that stretch. So we'll be evaluating that as we get the surveys in.
But Sharrows will be used the entire length of Beach
Got it.
Avenue. The purpose being, if you're riding in the lane where the Sharrows are, you're outside of the zone of parked cars opening doors into the.
Okay. And just as a follow-up, my last question or point, I guess, to what you said you would assume Lafayette Street and others, would have those bump outs. I would assume that council would be looking at these plans prior to them actually being done, not that it gets built and we say, okay, where did this come from? So as a resident, when I hear a street's going to be repaved, infrastructure's going to be fixed, I would expect the street to be repaved what was there. So when a project like this is done, where there are substantial changes to the streetscape, I would hope council would give a way for the public to at least view those plans, or at least address the changes in those plans prior to them being done, and then people coming back and saying, how did this happen? What recourse? It is a county road, and they are county roads,
Yes.
but they're still in our city. So, you guys sitting at the table still have the ability to discuss these plans with the county and make recommendations and changes, and call Mr. Lair and discuss things before it gets done. So
Yeah.
I would just hope that going forward, they do get reviewed, and it's not assumed it's going to look that way, that you guys would know what it's going to look like before it gets done, that's all. Thank you.
Yeah, it's been done extensively.
Thank you. Any other comments on resolutions this evening?
I'd like to just follow up, Jules Rouse, 1010 New York, on the same thing that Chris just spoke of. In the plans, it shows a teardrop at the cove. Is that a painted teardrop, or is that a hardscape?
Currently, it's currently a painted teardrop out there. We anticipate it being a hardscape teardrop at grade, just
I
to
hope not.
just to further delineate it. It's not going to be raised, but it's going to be, similar to the islands up at Lafayette and Washington as you go around that circle when you first come in, where there's pavers in the street, that we're looking to have that kind of treatment, as well as an end treatment at the end of the street to delineate that transition between where pedestrians and vehicles should and shouldn't be. To further delineate
I
that.
think that needs to be looked at very carefully. Putting a hardscape at that location with the number of bicycles and people who use that area to drop off their families and all the paraphernalia that goes to the beach, the traffic backs up or stacks up at that location. And if you put a teardrop in, I think that's going to create an additional hazard.
The teardrop is already out there. You can go out there today and see the teardrop. It exists today.
I think
It's
that
painted on the ground.
Yeah,
there's no going to
Yeah,
be there's no proposed raised.
it will be flush.
It'll be flush with the
Flush
grade.
is all.
But it's going to be, instead of it being painted today, it's going to be a
Brick.
brick paver
Okay.
at grade. But it'll be a different material surface so that it's,
I understand.
when a driver, it's going to be more readily seen, and it'll be tactile to when you drive over it, you're going to.
One of the problems right now, as you probably know, Jules, was some of the tourists, if you look at it right now, you can almost not see the paintings of the teardrop. So some of the folks who hadn't come down there kind of come to the dead end, and they just go straight like a dead end, and then they look to back out and do a K-turn and turn around. The idea of brick, first off, brick, you look at that area, and actually Councilman Meyer brought up, right now, it's one of our signature areas, as you know. It dead ends at a big cross rail. What do they call this?
Guardrail.
Guardrail. It's just a big, ugly guardrail that you see at the end on the sides of the parkway. So what we'd like to do is get rid of the guardrail, put in some nice-looking bollards, similar to what you might see on the mall. Do a little bit more brick pavers, and what that would do is signify to the driver, this is the turning lane. So basically keep that flow of traffic, then look at some permanent bike racks that don't have to be removed as you know, that's probably one of our highest trafficked areas for bicycle
It is the
storage.
premier spot
Right.
to go to the beach.
Yeah. So, and also look at some of the area where some of the sand has taken over some of the property that the city owns at the end of that street. Look for more bike racks in that area. But the main thing in this project right now is paving it. Just remember, the county stops their project at Broadway. Okay, so we don't want this project to simply end at Broadway and then it looks like as junky as it does today for the rest of the project. So from Broadway to the end of the street, what we plan on doing is utilizing the county's current contract, if possible, and because obviously they have, they're mobilized, they're there, the expense is already kind of written into the contract on a per square foot basis, probably much less than what it may cost us to do if we were just to do this small space. So largely this project is really just repaving what exists, perhaps the pavers as part of that teardrop, but other than that, it remains exactly the same. I do think we want to look at this a little bit further to dress it up a little bit nicer than what it is, and I know Mr. Meyer's working on that with the city engineer as we speak.
Have we run the TV cameras through the storm and sanitary lines?
We're replacing the sanitary lines in that section because they need to be replaced.
That would be part of this.
Storm sewer's fine?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments on resolutions this evening? Seeing that, we'll close public comment.
Mayor, if I could just,
Yep.
I would just, we do have the tax collectors end report, and we should just note that the year ended with a 99.36% collection rate, and they had to cancel the tax sale because all tax and utility delinquencies were collected. So I just want to, that was a great job by our tax collector's office, especially she went through some transitions with staff and everything, but she still was able to maintain her excellent tax collection rate for the city to make sure that we received all the taxes due to pay our bills.
Debbie and her staff do a great job, and it's reflected in the 99%.
It is.
It's a fantastic report for anybody to see how we keep your taxes low. This is really where it comes from.
Collecting them.
Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, we can close public comment and move on to resolutions.
Yes, we have the consent agenda tonight. Matters listed under the consent agenda are routine in nature and may be enacted by one motion and one vote. Items will not be read individually unless removed from the consent agenda by any member of council. Does council wish to remove any item from the consent agenda or make any comments?
Anything, council?
May I just say I abstain from the minutes?
Yes, noted. Thank you. Nothing to remove, council?
That's
All right. Would you like to have a motion to adopt the consent agenda?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Ready for roll call?
Roll call, please,
Yes,
sorry.
okay. Councilmember Yeager?
Yes.
Councilmember Meyer?
Yes.
Councilmember McDade?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Baldwin?
Yes.
Mayor Mullick?
Yes.
Great. Any old business, council?
The old business, council? Any new business, city solicitor?
Nothing tonight, Mayor.
City manager?
Just I wanted to update council. We're looking at instituting a policy of utilizing P cards to help assist our purchasing with city purchases. P card is used by city staff under really tight controls with daily and monthly limits on potential expenditures. Still has to follow all of the procurement rules within the city, but there are certain smaller purchases, whether it's registrations at a conference, manuals, or certain other purchases that really are, most of them are online purchases that have to be made with a credit card, as well as to have one for emergency purposes, whether we have, a household that God forbid we have a house fire and we need to find housing for somebody, you can use that card, for emergency uses where we do need to make an expenditure that, maybe that vendor does not want to work with us in that short-term period to take a purchase order. It allows the city to kind of handle some of those emergencies, but we're looking to establish that procurement process moving forward.
How many of these do you expect to be given to them?
Over the first 6 months, probably one to be handled by, through the CFO. I don't see a large really need for these, but I think it's just a valuable resource to have in the toolbox, so to speak. If we get rolling with it, it might be expanded to a small 2 or 3 department heads that have that need if we so choose to. Otherwise, it may just stay with the CFO or myself.
Okay, it's good. Good.
Great, thank you. All right, city clerk?
Yes, just want to spread the word again that we have a Red Cross Blood Drive coming up at Convention Hall on Monday, March 11th from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. So all donations are helpful. You can make appointments online at redcross.org, or if you have some problems or want some help, you can give me a call and we'll help you get your appointment. And that's it, Mayor.
Okay. Deputy Mayor?
Just one thing, with the library opening, we think maybe in April, May, June, okay. I know, and I spoke to Mayor Wallach and Councilmember Meyer about this. I would like to see if we can do some sort of ceremonial thing that was done when the library was taken out of the basement here, and doing some sort of a book brigade, maybe a 2-hour time period, maybe on a Saturday. Let's see what kind of response we get. But that's something I'd like to take on with Councilmember Meyer, if everybody's okay with that. I think that would be a fun way to open the library, something that's been historic, in the past.
Absolutely.
So, okay.
A lot of people know that they had a line of people, from City Hall here to the library passing books. That's how they move the books out of it, so we'll need a lot of volunteers. It's a little longer, but
fun.
we'll. s-
And one of the
Be
things I'm hoping for, because we're anticipating a date, we don't know that yet, but talk to your friends at your local organizations, Kiwanis Club, your churches, whoever you want to get out there to represent themselves, maybe wear your shirts as a community event. I think it's a great way to bring the community together and to represent the various aspects of our community.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a great idea.
Okay. And that's all, Mayor. Thank you.
Councilman Meyer?
Yes, Mayor. I just want to again thank the Shade Tree Commission and all the commissioners. A lot of people I don't think understand how hard their job is to deny their neighbors about taking down their tree. It's a tough job, and they are tough volunteers. We're not done with our what we're moving forward to accomplish. So I look forward to continuing with them. The Cape May Veterans Auxiliary is hoping to do a retiring of Old Glory ceremony in a month from now. They're going to include the Boy Scouts. I'll have more information if anybody wants to know about that, but we're trying to button some things up right now, and I'm looking forward to that. And
Councilmember Meyer, is that going to be for everyone to participate in, bringing their flags?
at this current time, they're going to focus on the flags they currently have.
Okay.
They're going to have flags dedicated to every branch, so they're all going to be in different bundles. But please, we encourage you to bring your flags if you have them for a future ceremony. They're hoping maybe to do this twice a year. Should only be an hour long. There should be more information coming up. And then finally, I'm excited about this Cove project. If that dune was not there, the view would just be amazing, what I remember when I was a kid. And if that was the case, it's a real great opportunity to spruce this area up and promote, our beautiful beaches. And that's all.
That's great. Thank you for taking that on, Mr. Meyer. I don't want to leave out our
Maureen and Mike.
Maureen.
Maureen, any comments? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I certainly can. No, nothing at this time. Thank you.
Great.
And Mr. Yeager?
Nothing tonight, thank you.
Okay. I just want to quickly say thank you to all the folks. You may have seen all the firefighters are starting to move into the fire department. And it's, as everybody knows, it's been a long process, especially this kind of last couple of months, punch list items getting done. And I want to specifically thank Paul Dietrich for working hard on that punch list, getting those minor details, getting people from across the state to come back down to do small detail things that is not easy to do, but you made all the phone calls, got people all here. I especially want to thank the construction office, all of our inspectors worked overtime on trying to get our firefighters back here in Cape May, which I know has been the goal. And to our firefighters, we thank you so much for your dedication to the city. We are happy to see you coming home. And a big thank you to West Cape May for their hospitality to our firefighters. I don't know what we would have been able to do without them, so we owe West Cape May a major debt of gratitude, and we thank Mayor Sabo, their volunteer fire department, and all the folks that were involved in that. And I think, and I do want to say thank you to the task force that helped make sure that that project got completed. All volunteer group that dedicated tons and tons of hours. Deputy Mayor, you were involved in over 100 meetings I think we had on the firehouse. But to get that completed, to get the firefighters here, and to do it on a budget that we had from the beginning is quite an accomplishment, and it took a lot of work from a lot of people. So I want to thank everybody who was involved. With that, open it up for public and I see our police chief. You may have heard we just received unanimous approval from the HPC for the police station design. I think the design is lovely. And we have a lot of work to go through, and you obviously we'll show a lot of those designs as we move forward. We need DEP approval, so that's a step in the right direction with the HPC on board. Next, it'll go to SHPO, the State Historic Preservation Office. SHPO reviews all city projects. With HPC's unanimous approval, I would assume that would do very well at the State Historic Preservation Office. But Chief, thank you for your patience and hard work on that task force as well. And hopefully we get good news from the DEP soon and we keep everything rolling. With that, we'll open it up to the public. Anyone wishing to speak, please come to the microphone, state your name and address for the record.
Martin Van Walsum, 329 Congress Street. Wanted to let the council know and the public know that MTRAC, as one of its 2024 objectives, is going to do a little deeper dive into the beach tag and beach utility function. My intention in terms of the work that I'm hoping to be able to do is to create a bit of a strategic plan so that it's not a year-by-year process, but that we can look in the future a little bit and see what kind of funding does make sense for the beach utility to cover the costs of the beach function. I'm bringing this up now because there was an article in the Herald over the weekend. Sea Isle is putting in beach tags on your cell phones. Mm-hmm. And we think it's a great idea as an addition to plastic beach tags. I can't imagine that we would ever want to do away with the plastic beach tags. Right. We've also received a comment or a suggestion from a member of the public that we should be looking at almost commemorative beach tags with special Christmas decorations, Valentine's Day, things that promote interest in the beach tags that, since they are a bit collectible. So all of those things will be taken into account in the kind of work that MTRAC's going to be doing to hopefully have an ongoing, robust beach tag program. I look forward to working with the city clerk and our new deputy city manager on that. And of course, we'll be open to comments and suggestions all the way through.
That's great. Thank you, Martin.
Also, I didn't want to parade up here all night long, but I do want to comment. Mr. Roush raised a point about people loading and unloading their families at the circle. They're not supposed to do that. It says no stopping and standing. Mm-hmm. And as a runner, trying to access the promenade at that point, trying to dodge traffic is very difficult. People do just stop to admire the sun at sunset, and it has very clear no stopping or standing signs. So I would encourage us to be thinking about what we can do to keep that traffic flowing through there. Mm-hmm. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Martin.
I totally agree. I love to go see the Cove, and there's always somebody there blocking my view, so I'm forced to just back up and turn around. And I agree.
Anyone else from the public this evening? Rush.
Jules Roush, 1010 New York. Only a bit of concern from the taxpayer standpoint. The number of road projects that we have going on in the city, now we're going to have another one from Broadway to the Cove. Has there been a forecast of what our debt increase will be as a result of all the projects that are under construction? And now we got Pittsburgh Avenue as well. I've no concept at all as to where we stand in the monies that we have committed going down the road, so to speak.
Well, I didn't know what you meant by Pitt. Did you mean Pittsburgh?
Well, the one at Wawa, I call that Pittsburgh.
County road.
Most of these projects are county.
Yeah, we've got to pay for the sewer line, right? No, on-
We're not doing the
on
sewer
Pittsburgh.
line on Beach.
The line that is in front of Wawa that has collapsed, that you're
Texas
starting to work on.
Yeah.
Or
Texas, yeah.
Okay, you
Paul.
call that Texas at that point? Okay,
Mr. Dietrich, your mic.
that's a city repair.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
it's an emergency
We're,
repair.
we're splitting the cost, I believe.
Yeah, that'll be split with the county, but that's an emergency repair.
But it's still going, it is something that we need to fund. That's my interest.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Where do we stand with the additional fundings that we've had to put up for the emergency repairs on Lafayette and now with Texas Avenue?
Well, all of those numbers have been approved at council, and we haven't gone over anything that have been approved. We, as you know, we've had to dedicate a significant amount of money to that project. I think almost $2 million. Yeah, I mean, it's a ton of money, but obviously, we had to get the utilities in under the ground on Lafayette Street. And frankly, it's an addition, which was discussed at this table, but it was an addition to do the top of Lafayette past the turning lane. But I thought it was absurd to not pave all of Lafayette Street, frankly, from the little bridge at Skellinger's Landing to Collier's.
Don't misunderstand my request.
The debt ratio?
I'm only interested in knowing what the total number of dollars are that the city has committed for these repairs and the emergency repairs, so that we know what it is that we're looking at.
We'll have a road report at the next meeting.
Oh, great. That'd be fine.
Perfect.
Thank you.
All right.
I mean,
Put that on the agenda.
for some of, like the repairs on Texas, work that's being done as an emergency, so that's not pre-planned money, so I won't have that money
Well, we'll-
for next meeting.
we'll-
But we'll be able to accommodate for Lafayette and the other work that we've been.
And everything that we have so far.
Under plan.
Yeah. Any other questions? Motion to adjourn? Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful evening. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, Maureen.
Bye.
Listen, I was trying to keep a low profile on my first day. I said, "Oh man, the chief beat me to it."
It was just you and Mr. D.
No, I know. I'm just busting.
Listen, we'll get some